What China is hiding from the world will be a disaster for the United States and a total destabilizing of the US dollar. But hey, it's all part of the plan. More on the China plan in a minute. I'm going to show you the troubling new data which no one is talking about, almost like they're willfully ignorant about the impending storm on the horizon. Just watch the mainstream media. You won't hear a peep about this. But first, we just had one of the worst economic weekends in decades. Inflation at an all-time high. All of those stimulus checks have dried up, leading to a nation with no capital and huge credit card debt. The credit card debt is out of control. Americans have no cash. The government thought that they could just spend like crazy, print money with no problems at all. It's total garbage. They wanted to pretend that money they created out of thin air would have no consequences. But of course, the great rub is that the average European and Americans right now who received stimulus monies will be the ones hurt the most when the music stops, not the rich. Now, it's the middle class and the poor who will feel the bulk of the problems. They never accept responsibility for their spending. The Biden administration literally trying to blame the fact that you paid 20 to 25% more for your Thanksgiving meal on Vladimir Putin, just like Putin's price hike.
The price of turkey jumped more than 20% from last year, but check out how the Department of Agriculture is spinning things, writing in a memo that Russia's war on Ukraine and drought across the United States are pushing up the price of Thanksgiving staples. They
really think you're stupid. So your turkey and cranberry sauce costs more because of Vladimir Putin. Okay. And they literally said that with a straight face. So this is how crazy it gets. They spend money they don't have, and they blame it on rich people who aren't paying their fair share, they say. And they also blame it on Vladimir Putin, when of course it's all the politicians' fault. People can't even afford to buy home heating oil right now.
We're riding around with oil for less, and they say that their customers are struggling to keep up with these skyrocketing costs. Across the board, heating costs are expected to be high this winter. Heating oil in particular, up 68% year over year. Today, they filled up this tank with about $950 worth of home heating oil. A year ago, the same amount of oil would have cost them closer to $600. That's why the company tells me that some customers are just doing without.
People have gone without hot water and heat for a week just because they haven't had the money to call me and say, hey, come on in.
And as we've been saying on this show for nearly a year, they are going to take everything they can from the poor and the middle class, which is why they added 87,000 new IRS agents. Bloomberg reporting this week, quote, the IRS says more auditors and upgraded technology could help raise as much as $1 trillion. Right. So who, of course, are they going to go after, these IRS agents? The poor and the middle class, not the wealthy. So the U.S. has been destabilizing the dollar for months now, and China is ready to pounce on this weakness with a three-step process. And very few people are paying attention to what I'm about to show you. Instead, the media would rather distract you with stories that China is facing economic collapse, that China's President Xi Jinping is facing a coup. Yeah, that was my favorite story back in September. That story didn't age well. Now, the West is trying to hide its love of China by putting out bogus stories like that. And over the past few years, members of the World Economic Forum, including Klaus Schwab and Justin Trudeau, have all very publicly praised the China economic model. Tough on social controls, but expansive in manufacturing and infrastructure. Justin Trudeau has long wanted to move Canada towards the Chinese model. Watch.
He was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fast as we need to start investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility that I know Stephen Harper must dream about of having a dictatorship that he could do everything he wanted that I find quite interesting.
And then there's Klaus Schwab, the supreme leader of all of us, praising the Chinese model as well. Watch.
I respect China's achievements, which are tremendous over the last over 40 years. I think it's a role model for many countries, but the Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries.
So they really love China. They really love this model. But the West openly talks about China's collapse. Maybe they're right. So on the one hand, you secretly have them talking about their love of China, but publicly on mainstream media, you're hearing them talk about the collapse of China. So which is it? Maybe they are right. Maybe China is about to collapse, and that the United States, with a currency that is $31 trillion in debt, will be the winner in all of this. Okay. Again, maybe they're right, but I don't buy it. In fact, there are a couple of big data points that have been unearthed that show us something else is happening. There are 3 very important steps that China is taking to become a global dominant superpower. Number 1 in this process, and most importantly, is to destabilize the United States dollar. Now, a few smart people that I trust have been sounding the alarm over China's sale of United States debt. Now, this sounds like the kind of thing that would make my 12-year-old's eyes glaze over. Like, Dad, what are you talking about? Can we do something else? I don't want to hear about this. Well, it sounds innocuous, but it is incredibly important and it is incredibly damning for the United States. So pay attention to this. Let me explain. The U.S. has a lot of debt. So much so that it would make your head spin. Now, as far as countries go, China's numero uno, the number 1 buyer of American debt, and has been for years. So when someone says America is in debt to China, they're not kidding. It's not just a talking point. Now, anytime the United States needs to print fake U.S. dollars for stimulus checks or buying more tanks to send to Ukraine, we sell treasury bonds. And China and large banks buy them up. So China owned tens of billions of dollars of U.S. treasuries until recently. And then something started to happen. Take a look at this chart. China is unloading massive amounts of U.S. dollars, just like Russia. China has sold $121 billion in U.S. debt between the end of February of this year to September, and it's growing larger. And then something mysterious happened. Reports that someone or something in this same period of time started buying an equivalent amount of gold and silver. Now look at the green bar on your screen. Now at the end of the chart, stare at that green bar. Some mystery buyer is buying billions of dollars in gold. Who could it be? Well, it turns out it's China. Yes, in fact, they are. And a part of that comes from Russia. According to Finbold News, they cite Chinese customs officials who said Chinese imports of gold from Russia skyrocketed in July. They reported a more than 8-fold increase in the month, with approximately 50 times the amount of gold arriving from China compared to the previous year. Now, buying huge amounts of Russian gold and gold from other sources. Also buying silver. But silver is very hard to buy right now because there's a shortage. According to the Comdex numbers, right now, silver is running out because of the demand. So it's hard to find. So now on the surface, this might not sound like much. Why would China want so much gold? Why would they want all these precious minerals? Well, what does this do to the US dollar? Well, if the US can't find buyers for its money printing machine, then you create economic havoc in the United States. If China de-dollarizes their reserves and moves it towards gold, which is what they're doing, then what happens is you shore up your own currency. That's right, the yuan, the dominant global currency in the next few years. Also, if China moves on Taiwan, it limits their exposure to U.S. sanctions, right? They, of course, saw what happened to Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, and they don't want that happening in China. The second step in this move to global dominance is an expanding middle class. So step 1 is to destabilize the U.S. dollar. Check, they've done that. It's already underway. Step 2 is to enrich their middle class with expanded income, property ownership. Middle-income Chinese right now are expanding rapidly. In fact, the average annual salary for the middle class right now in China is $17,000. That's a huge increase. But when I say China's middle class is expanding, I should have said exploding. Just look at these numbers. This is astonishing. In the year 2000, China's middle class made up just 3.1% of the population. In 2018, middle class, 50%. That's a 47% change. So this is all part of China's plan to replace the US dollar. By having China's middle class expand, they accomplish a major part of the puzzle. Think about it. China makes a lot of things, then it ships it to the United States buyers. How do you become self-sufficient? You create a massive middle class that buys the things you manufacture, so you don't need the United States to buy your flat-screen televisions anymore. You do it yourself. You buy them yourself. And now Americans, by the way, can't afford heating oil. You see where all this is going, right? Now, step 3 in this process for China is to develop your domestic economy to reduce reliance on exports and on the dollar. Now you have this bigger middle class and the largest car market in the world. Why do you need the United States? You think you're going to be driving a Ford truck anytime soon in Beijing? No, you're not. And I'll throw in step 4 for good measure, military dominance in the South China Sea. By 2035, China will have the world's largest military, and this completes the circle. This is all happening right before your eyes. So if you want to protect your family right now, please think about where your investments sit. If you've got a 401k or some sort of other retirement vehicle, are they backed by US dollar accounts? Are they in US treasuries? Don't be left holding the bag when the music stops. Is that a mixed metaphor? I don't know. Don't be left without a chair when the music stops. Either way, protect yourself. That's the news update part of this video. Now I want to tell you about the sponsor for today's video. Pay attention to this company. Now, if you're an investor, it's Silver Mountain Resources, and it's the only silver company in my portfolio because of the enormous upside potential. Now, I'm going to show you how these price targets look for this company in a moment. I think it's going to be eye-opening. But for some context here on Silver Mountain, the founder is a guy by the name of Jose Vizquera. Now, before he started Silver Mountain, he ran another company that in 2015 he took from $10 million market cap to over $1.5 billion. So if you invested $5,000 in that company, that would have turned into $750,000. So Silver Mountain is Jose's second company. And the reason I'm so bullish on this is because it's a pure play on silver. They are sitting on massive deposits as they continue to pull this precious mineral out of the ground. Now, if prices go higher, then their deposit price goes up. So does their stock. It's all tied together. And the massive amounts of silver that are sitting in their Peruvian mine right now is monstrous. We're talking, I think it's 82 million ounces. The last time I told you about this company, their share price was 15 cents a share. Now, as of this recording, it's 26 cents a share. And this week, mining legend Eric Sprott has a new price target of 90 cents a share. So that's a nice 172% increase in 12 months. So Eric Sprott has a price target for Silver Mountain of 90 cents a share. Also, 8 Capital, their agency, just released a price target of 85 cents a share. So you have 2 price targets with a roughly 150% return. And I should mention, when this company IPO'd, you had huge investors like Franklin Templeton buying up 10 million shares of Silver Mountain. And guess what? They paid 50 cents a share Canadian. That means right now the stock is trading at about 78% off the price that they paid for it. And these big whales keep on buying the stock because of where they see the demand for silver going. So these large buyers are just waiting for the share price to skyrocket towards those price targets. So you'd be buying it at a massive discount compared to where these big whales bought their initial IPO price. Now, Silver Mountain is an absolute game changer in the silver mining sector. I'm going to put their stock ticker up here on the screen so you can go and check them out right now and do your own due diligence. The management of this company comes from South America's most successful mining dynasty, and their track record of finding the best mines in the world and extracting precious metals is second to none. So their project, I told you about it a little bit earlier, in Peru, has 84 million ounces of silver in the ground under their deposit. So if you do the math on that, it's shocking, because as an investor, you're basically paying about 37 cents Canadian for an ounce of silver when you invest, because the company's value is directly tied to these silver deposits that they're sitting on right now. Eric Sprott is another important part of this story. He's the self-made billionaire mining tycoon that loves silver more than any other precious mineral, not only for its spending power, but for its use in just about every electronic device that we buy. And Elon Musk says the demand for silver in Tesla and solar panels will explode over the next few years. And we have a shortage of it right now. And again, don't take it from me. Take the price target from the best asset manager in this sector, Eric Sprott. He has a price target of 90 cents a share. That's basically like Warren Buffett coming to you and telling you that this company he's found is worth 3 times its current price. So here is Silver Mountain's stock ticker on the screen. I'll have links to their website. I'm also going to have the links to the full price target report in the description below so you can read through it. You can read about all of these different silver projects they're currently working on. Deep dive their due diligence on this as a company. And pay attention, guys, to what's happening right now to the US dollar. So protecting your family against these globalists who want to drive the US dollar into the ground. You see it, it's happening right in front of your face. How do you protect your family? In my opinion, my personal opinion, moving towards precious metals and investing in the companies that pull those precious metals out of the ground. Also investing in the commodities that we require for our automobiles, investing not only in the commodities themselves, but also the companies that are pulling them out of the ground. So do your due diligence on this. We'll have links in the description below, and I'll see you next time, everyone.